you saw the title, so let's get on with it. The quality of your loop, or buckle as some people like to call it, will greatly reflect on how the overall look of your bracelet will be. So choosing a good start could be considered as important as choosing your colors. Here we're going to start with just the simple loop and knot. I've taken the strings, put it in half. Here's the middle. If I take it, bring it around, and pull it through here, that is a simple loop. So, pros and cons. First, it's super easy. I mean, out of the whole list I'm going to present to you today, this is absolutely the easiest. It is also really fast, faster than any of the rest of these. So, if you're just beginning, you're not sure, there's a chance that you're probably going to just throw it away anyways, this might be the one to use. The cons are that it needs a knot to keep it together. That'll become clear a little bit later on, so we'll just leave it at that. It does not look as nice. As you go through the rest of this list, you'll see this is just simply, it's just not pleasant. And it wears out faster, which is debatable, but the theory goes that one will be slightly shorter than the others, and with the pressure of the other ends that tie through the loop, that one string that's slightly shorter will be the first to wear out, which it'll then go to the next one and finally wear through the whole thing. So that's the pros and cons for this one. Okay, next we have is a simple braid. Here I have the strings, I fold it in half, there's the middle, and I'm going to clip this down. And I have to clip it just a little bit off center, so that way it'll have room, so that way basically the braid ends up right in the center. I have to sort the colors out. A braid can pretty much be used with any number of strings. I know that it seems like you would want to be able to divide it by 3, but let's say if you had 7 strings, you can always put 1 into one of those groups and it'll turn out just fine. So it's very simple. This one goes over, and this one goes over, and this one goes over, and it just keeps repeating like that. Once you have a bit of your braid down, maybe say about an inch or so, 3 cm, you then take it and you tie it in the knot just like we did with the previous one. Okay, so the pros and cons. So in the pros, this one just looks better than the loops. It's just a little bit neater, it looks a little more organized, and it's easy to make. The cons are it needs a knot to keep it from unraveling, and it goes into that other part we were talking about that I'm going to get to in one of these next ones, so we'll get to that in just a moment. Okay, so this one is often referred to as the Jacob's ladder. Here we've basically folded it in half, and this time we're going to use an eraser. So I'm going to take the clip and I'm going to clip this up here like that, and I'm going to leave that one strand off that makes the Jacob's ladder. Whoops, need to clip that better. And then we're going to clip the other end at the other end of this board. Now this raise will make this a whole lot easier, a lot faster to make. Alright, so it's relatively simple. You just make the figure 4 and pull the tail up and through. And you just continue to keep doing that. And what you'll get is this little knob here that it creates will make a spiral staircase, like look, going all the way around all the rest of the strings. This is really simple. So, and you can kind of see it starting to work its way around there. You'll have to kind of help shift it along as it's going. Again, make this about 3 cm give or take, unless your bracelets may be really, really huge, perhaps. I don't know. You can gauge that for yourself. Again, the whole point of the eraser is just to have this raised up. It'll make it easier to get underneath it like that. Once you're done, you don't have to knot this together, and that will give you the advantage of being able to use this in an alternative type start. And there you have it. Okay, so the pros and the cons. It looks nice. It's a nice clean start. This is not a bad one. So, sure, go for it. It allows for an easy alternative start, which is when you make it where the loop becomes more of a teardrop shape. I actually did it with this one. It's a little hard to see because it's so few strings. And it's very simple to do. This is something that if you're just a beginner, I think anybody can pretty much master this. And the con is that single bump might cause that outer string to wear out a bit faster. Once it splits, it starts to sort of unravel. The rest of the strings will still pretty much hold the bracelet together, but they'll have that one string that sort of sticks out from there. Had it happen if a bracelet was a gift, so just pointing it out, it's not that big of a deal. Still takes quite a while before it happens. Okay, so this one we're going to set up just like we did with the Jacob's ladder. We have the eraser, and this time we start off just the same. Do the figure 4, and we pull this up and through. And then we do a backwards figure 4, and we pull this up and through. And we just keep alternating which way that goes. Now, I don't know that there's a proper name for this. I believe the knot itself is called a half hitch. But for general purposes, I guess we could just say that it's the alternative to the Jacob's ladder. And what it will do is it will keep that ridge in one nice straight row. So instead of creating a spiral by alternating back and forth, we are making it go straight down the line. Again, just make this as long as you need it. For the most part, I say experiment. I mean, if you're just doing a small bracelet like this, it doesn't have to be huge. I see some that people have, I don't know, inches and inches worth, and it's just a small bracelet. Doesn't have to be that far. So this is probably fine just like this. Okay, so now for the pros and cons. It looks nice. I mean, I really think this one looks awesome. And it does allow for those easy alternative starts. So you can start from the middle, you can start from the outside, doesn't matter, still gonna look nice. And as for the cons, it is slightly more difficult to do than the Jacob's ladder. And it requires that you actually have that one string is to be longer, or just used less in the pattern. So it's just something you have to take into consideration when you start. Actually, the Jacob's ladder is the same. I guess I should have put that in there, but yeah, it's just something you're going to have to think about before you start your bracelet. So in this one, we're going to use the eraser again, the clip, and we have another clip down here out of frame. This time we take the 2 strings, and this one I kind of bring over here like I'm making a 4, and bring this down and around and up through that hole. And I leave this one over here like this so I can remember which way I've gone. So I bring this one back over this way. And this creates a square knot that goes all the way around everything else that's in the inner core. This creates this nice little macrame thing that runs nice and parallel along there. It's not very difficult, just takes a little getting used to. Kind of try to slow this down a little bit for you. So it makes a little bit like an S shape here. Let me see if I can get this up in the frame. All right. Then I'm going to take this string here and just come in underneath everything and up through this part here. And tighten that up to the top. Then I'm left with this loop. And I'm going to come around and do it like that. And just repeat that as many times as necessary. And once you kind of get good at it, it'll go much faster. I know this will start out very slow for most of you. It did for me as well. It was especially slow for me because nobody told me I could use 2 clips, and nobody suggested that you should raise it up on something like an eraser. The eraser is handy because it's rubbery and it allows the clip to really hold the string better to something. If you just use, like, say, a block of wood and that's kind of slipperier, then the strings will slide. You'll have a bit of a problem there. But an eraser has that nice grippy sortness to it, and that's why that works out well. Okay, so for the pros and the cons. It looks nice. This one also allows for the alternative starts. And it's simple to make. I almost put that as a con because it is a bit more difficult. It takes a little bit more practice, but overall, I'd still say this is relatively simple once you get the hang of it. And it tends to last. This is just the way that the square knots work. Even if one of the strands break, the next knot tends to hold it, so you don't get to see the fraying so much. And as far as the cons go, you need 2 strings are needed to be cut longer or used less in the pattern. And when I say longer, I'm not talking just a couple inches or a few cm or something. You have to really kind of give it as much as you're going to use in that macrame portion. So just something to take into account. The next one doesn't have that problem, so let's get on with that. Okay, so the next one is the Kumihumo. This is probably the one that'll take the longest. Not gonna lie about that. So here's the halfway point. I'm gonna come in just a little bit more, so that way what gets used up in the kumi is offset. I have to wind it around this bobbin, so that way all this string doesn't get in my way. So it's like that, right? Then I take the strings here and I pull them up through this hole in the center of the kumi disc. Now I'm going to sort out my colors as I think will turn out to be something nice. Part of the fun of the kumi is you can use these same colors again and again and again, change up what sequence you put it onto the disc, and each time it'll come out different. Now, my wife, who does these things quite frequently, she pretty much knows how to make a spiral or whatever she wants it to look like pretty well already. Me, I'm always delighted and surprised by whatever comes out of it. So we'll see what this does. I'm going to put the blue and the purple opposing from the red and the orange. So we'll see how that turns out. Now, Since this string here and this string here would be starting out first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie them in a little square knot. Now, typically you don't see this anywhere. It's not in any of the real instructions or anything. But what I have found is it will make it so that way when you take the whole thing off and you're getting ready to go make your bracelet, you don't have to worry about the thing unraveling on you. So now it's just this one comes down, this one goes up, turn it, this one comes down, and this one goes up. It's got little arrows on it to show you which direction you should turn the wheel. It takes longer, and it is very, very repetitive. And if you're not careful, you will get all of the strings that are out here tangled up. So be careful with that. But if you move them along, just kind of make sure that that string that you just moved isn't tangled with anything else. You'll be fine. And again, just keep going around in a circle. Now mind you, when you're finished and you give it a tug, the whole thing becomes suddenly longer. Just part of the way it works. So if it seems like you've been going at it for a while, you're probably done. Again, my wife has a science to that as well. This is not my favorite part. In fact, if given to my choice, I would pass these off to her every single time. But she's busy caring for the parents. I'm in here helping to teach you guys how to do neat stuff. So not sure how far I've gotten. It's just a little bit, and I'm sure you guys can't see that. But I'm sure if you watch my Instagram or whatever else, you know this is my preferred method of making my loop. It is one of the more creative methods, I think. It can really highlight all of your colors, not just one of them. And sometimes you can actually even make your pattern look similar to what you have coming out of your loop. So like a zigzag in the kumi might look an awful lot like the zigzag of the bracelet. And I think that's a nice touch. Not very talkative because I'm really concentrating. I don't want to mess this up. So oops. Again, it's just an up, down, and turn. Or in my case, down and up. Alright, so that's about there. And then for the last two strings, we'll take this one and this one, and we will tie them in a knot so that way it doesn't unravel when we take it out. Okay, pros and cons. It looks nice. I think it's perhaps one of the nicest looking ones. It allows for the easy alternative starts. And it's relatively simple to make. There's not a whole lot to that. And it's long lasting. In fact, if you look at most rope, they use a machine to create the same kind of a braid because it is long lasting. It's what ships use. It's pretty much everywhere. So that, I guess, relatively speaks for itself. The con is it requires a Kumihumo disc to make it. And that's kind of a con because first off, you have to go buy the thing. And secondly, if you were like a nomad running around making bracelets, it's just one more thing you have to carry. And the other problem with it is it only works with certain numbers, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, and 28. So if you have something odd like that bracelet that was requested, and it was only 7 strands, it's not going to work. So you'll notice a lot of the bracelets I do, I like the 6 colors, so it's like 6 strings. I double it up, so that makes the 12. So that's how I still get my kumis in. But it doesn't lend itself well to just any old number that you want. Every other loop that I showed you, you could pretty much use any number you want. So there you have it. There's 6 different styles of loops. If you know of additional ones, please share it with me. Maybe I can feature it in a different video, but I think this pretty much covers everything. And, until next time, don't get your strings in a bunch.